I record a lot of solo episodes for my mindset episodes. It's not narcissism. It's not that I like looking at myself, but I can even gauge my own energy level or kind of see just watching myself helps me record a better episode.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, what's up, podcaster? It's Adam Adams, and your friend Julie Holly is on. This is episode 12 of 12, and I need to ask you to do me a favor. Actually, sorry. I need to ask you to do you a favor. If you haven't been checking out all the other Julie Holly episodes, this is 12 of 12, and 1 of 12 was really good. 2 of 12 was really good. And I could keep saying that about the rest. And the point is that I've had a lot of people reach out to me personally, friends, and just listeners, and saying that they're going to be sad when the Julie Holly episodes are done. They're saying that the Julie Holly episodes are their favorite. They love the coaching calls, which is actually why I started doing coaching calls with other people as episodes, so that people could be asking you questions. Today, we're going to be talking about technical difficulties. And it just so happens that today we're having a bit of I can't even talk. I'm having human issues and technical issues right now. So Julie's got a big snowstorm up in Idaho, and it's slowing down her internet. It's just changing how the internet's working there. And so we decided to make a tweak to what we're doing. We'll get back to that a little bit later, but first we're going to introduce Julie Holly. And then imagine that there's all this applause happening right now. What? Julie, it's good to have you.
It's so great to be back. And you know what? This has been such a fun series to record. Like, absolutely loved it. Thanks so much.
I've really enjoyed it. And one of the things that I really like is just 12 episodes with you. And you prep one question per call. And they're all different because it's 12 and you're not going to just do the same one. And I'm not saying I dislike my other interviews that end up being the coaching calls that are shared. I'm not saying I dislike them at all. I've noticed that there's a recurring theme of some of the questions. So it's like there's practically 5 questions, and most people ask 3 of the same 5. And so we kind of get into the same stuff. And with you, it's been really cool because one episode is one question, another is another question. And so it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the listener loves it so much. So I will be crying after today, that's for sure. Because it's been nice. And I think it's been a blessing also for the listener, just to be able to kind of get that coaching and everything. As I said, we have a technical issue today, but we will get into that a little bit later as we start. Julie, what's your question? What do we want to figure out? What do we want to help you with, and hopefully also help with the listener with today?
Okay, well, we are going to talk about technical difficulties, and it's super, we're going to get into that. But first, I wanted to just mention that I think one of the reasons that this series has been really interesting is that because I'm using Grow Your Show for all my podcast editing now and, just production services, and I'm coaching with you, there's change that is happening along the way. It's real, it's tangible change. And so my questions are changing along the way. And my curiosity is changing because it's like, as podcasters, we end up with these things that are bogging us down and we don't actually take the time to address them. And they're things that they're like a la carte. Like, if I just double down and take the time to deal with this, I'm not going to have to deal with this again. But for just human nature, I don't know, like, we just don't tackle them. And so we end up just feeling burdened. And so by going through this coaching process and, having Grow Your Show take over all the production service, it just has alleviated a lot of pain points and pressure. And I think that is also one of the differences in the series, and in watching that progression.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's an interesting point. A lot of the other interviews that are basically coaching calls, they're not already clients. Luckily, a few of them have scheduled calls with me and discovery calls after because they want to work with us. But in general, they weren't clients when they first came to the show. So it's kind of cool.
It is really cool.
So, hey, you mentioned that there's a lot of change on the podcast. Is there anything that is notable enough that you should mention it to the listener right now?
I don't think there's any notable enough change right now to mention that's maybe that tangible outcome-based type, reference points, waypoints. But for me, internally, the clarity that I have gained over the last, several months of working with Grow Your Show and then starting coaching with you has produced this internal clarity and confidence. And I am noticing I've had people sending me direct messages saying like, oh my gosh, I love the new direction of your show. And I'm finding myself speaking to the conscious investor in such a different way than I used to, like speaking just to the conscious investor, not the investors, and really being clear and letting them in. For instance, if you've listened to previous episodes, you know that I'm changing the intro on my podcast. And so recently in one of the podcast episodes, and I gained this from our coaching sessions, also from listening to this podcast, where it's like, okay, I'm going to prime the audience. I even apologized to them. I even said like, conscious investor, I'm so sorry. I've made some changes and I haven't even spoken to you about them. And there's some changes still coming. And so I think that there's this really sweet camaraderie that's taking place, and the people reaching out to me are expressing that they're feeling that and they're loving the direction of the show. And so I think that when you're getting that level of response, every one person actually represents more. We might even say it's 1 to 100 or 1 to 50, right? And so I know that that's going to be the sentiment of many of my listeners as well. And that makes me really happy.
That's cool. Are you able to give us just a little bit more detail, me and the listener, just a little bit more detail on things that you've changed over the time? You mentioned that it's helping you internally, and you gave us an example, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that you can pinpoint that you've made a shift on that's helping your podcast or you personally or your business.
Absolutely. My podcast was fractured before. And honestly, I think this is the first time I've been able to articulate it in that way. And even though I thought that I was serving the conscious investor, I was really serving a plural of investor types instead of really serving my avatar. And so by nature of using the avatar worksheet, working on you with my avatar with you and really diving into that, I've actually shifted who my guests are. And I've become very clear as to this is the guest. And I know exactly why every single guest is on my show. I don't do the, we're scratching each other's backs, which I really didn't do that much before because I'm not into it's not tit for tat. Like, hey, if I have a show that's on like aeronautics and aerospace, and you have a show on showing, show dogs, we're probably not going to be complimentary. That's not going to be a good pod swap, more than likely. Right. So, and so it's like really niching down and saying, I invited somebody yesterday. I was on the phone with a woman and I said, wow, I can hear that you would be able to serve my audience. I wasn't intending to do this, but based on this conversation, I really think you would be, of tremendous value to the listener on my podcast. And so I'm really hand selecting the guests that are on the show with full confidence that we'll have a conversation that will serve the conscious investor in a powerful way.
I like that a lot. Have you also started interviewing people that are your perfect avatar? I'm only curious because that's one of the things that I do on my show, and it's one way to monetize a podcast. So I'm randomly curious if you're interviewing people that can serve your listener only, or if the people that you're interviewing can actually work with your company.
So I am always scouting out my perfect avatar. And I am finding that avatar on a regular basis and inviting. And I have full confidence that the more I train myself to be looking for my avatar as a guest, that I am going to unearth that. So
Cool.
I think that that's an area where it's going to be something that I'm going to continue to grow into.
Nice. I love it. Well, we were also going to be talking today, unless you have anything else on this, we'll definitely do that first. But let's then move into issues, stuff that happens with a podcast and any that you've recently come across.
Stuff happens. So winter in North Idaho came especially early, which is great for snowboarding. I mean, we started our season early. Everything's like magical. However, it makes my internet trash. Yes, I do have Starlink, so don't be laser beaming me saying like, Julie, just get Starlink. Yes, I live in the middle of nowhere. However, Starlink, believe it or not, doesn't work where I live because of the amount of trees in the direction Starlink has to be facing and such.
Is Starlink, it must be some type of satellite internet?
Thank you. Yes, Elon Musk's, you can have internet
that's Elon
wherever
Musk's?
you go. Yes.
He has another company?
I'm pretty sure that's a
Wow.
Elon Musk deal. Yeah.
Interesting. I wasn't aware.
Yeah. Okay. So Starlink is really great because it's all about getting high quality, high speed internet service to remote parts of the world. And so anybody globally can have this, and it is a satellite service.
What's the upload and download speed?
I don't know because I never got to use it here, and I'm not the person my husband took care of all of that. But,
Well, do me a favor. Is it on right now? Is that what you're using?
No, it's not. And that's the
Oh.
whole thing, is that I cannot use it. So I have a Starlink that I paid $1,000 for, just collecting dust because I can't get the northern
So
exposure.
there's no like monthly subscription?
You have to have northern exposure in order to track with the satellites. And I have trees that block my exposure.
Okay, so what do you use instead?
So I use a small town. It still is a satellite-based internet connection, but it's a local company. And, it makes it difficult when it's stormy to record podcasts.
Yeah. Well, we have a mutual friend that you introduced me to. She's also a listener of the show. She's also been a guest of the show. She probably knows who I'm talking about right now. And she also...
She had to stand for a long time during that recording, I heard.
She might end up working with us. So I think she's considering having us kind of take off the back office hard stuff for her. The reason I bring her up is just because where I live, the internet's pretty bad. Yeah. And I think this is a good segue, a helpful thing for the listener as well, just because not every listener's in a certain place. So it's called CenturyLink. So I've got CenturyLink up here in part of Conifer, and the internet that they were saying that they could give was not fast enough for a podcast. And I had to have a podcast studio. So my assistant, her name still is Arisa, but she now moved somewhere else with her family. But she reached out to all of the internet companies up here in Conifer and told them, how fast I needed it to be at least. And so what they ended up doing is they hardwired like just regular phone cables. So the internet's still not that fast because it's just regular phone cables, but they hardwired multiple phone cables into my office so that I could have 100 download speed and 10 upload, which is not that fast. The Comcast, most Comcast, and there's a lot that can be 200, 400, or 800, or even 1,000 download, and 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 upload. But really, ultimately, this internet, it has never been bad for me. It has been slow at random times, but it has never been bad. The reason I bring up our mutual friend, Monica, is because she lives in one of the houses up here. And for my house, I couldn't get I just moved down the hill, but when living in Conifer, I was unable to get any internet at all. I ended up, there is a satellite internet that is a little bit slow. And then at some point, my service provider, I use T-Mobile, they came out with like some type of Wi-Fi that you just plug in and then it pushes it toward your other devices. The only problem is that the cell service also sucks here. And because we're in this weird like mountain valley, so there's peaks all around and a river right there. And the point that I'm trying to make is I think that I was getting something like 20 or 60 download and 5-ish upload speed. But it also was faulty and never really worked. And so I'd rather have an office, because when I'm at my office, it can be a benefit because I work better. It's easier to me be focused on work when I'm not at a home office. So for me, that was important. Also, but it was essential based on the internet. Now, if I had only solo episodes, it would probably be okay for me to record at my home in a mountain town, because you just record it and then yeah, sure, it'll upload and take forever, but you can do that and go eat dinner and then watch a movie and then come back and go to bed and then wake up and it's ready. That's all good. I just learned that for me, I had to just go and get an actual office, and Arisa, who is just awesome and smart, was able to figure out how to tell them what we needed. And at the end result, because I also was talking to Monica if she wants to take over my home, my office, because I'm going to probably move into a home office now, which would be the first time in ever. I have only had a home office in 2015 and 16. But wow. The point that I'm making is she actually said, she was like, I actually might do that because she's like, I'm tired of going down the hill so far, especially in the winter. Whereas this office is only 5-6 minutes from her home, where she and her husband live. But anyway, it's a nice place and it's been cool, but we had to kind of like make do. Do you know your upload and download speed with the local one? Can you maybe even just go to like some search bar and say internet speed test, and then just say, yes, do it. Like click the yes button. I want you to start. And just so we can kind of live hear where you are with that. Part of the reason why I even ask is right now it's low. It's probably slower because you're being blocked by snow and clouds with this internet based on it being a satellite. And so there's probably just a little bit that it needs to get through and disturbance, but just curious what it shows. And if you're listening, you can do that anytime. Go to any search bar and just click in internet speed test. If you have never done that before, you might be curious and just do it today. You just type in that you want to do an internet speed test, which is a speed test for your internet. And then something will pop up. There's usually 2 or 3 options. Any of them are usually good. You just click on it. And in a matter of usually like 30 seconds, it'll
done.
Say where you are. So where are you, Julie?
It's fast. This is so horrible. Download is 18 and the upload is 2.92.
Okay, so why don't you share with the listener what we're doing differently on this podcast episode, because you're at 18 and what was it, 12?
2.18 for the download, 2.92
2.2
on the upload.
No wonder we had so much problems.
Oh gosh. Okay, and to be fair, I've gone rounds with this network because I have one option where I live for my internet because I live outside of town, so I can't have cables run. I'm like got pasture land and mountains in front of me, and so anyway, we've gone rounds with how do we get this faster? I did use Verizon as my carrier, and they sell a device similar to what you're talking about. So a couple of years ago, I'm like, I can't have this happen anymore because I had to cancel some podcast recordings in the past. And so I got one of those portable devices, it was a little better. It wasn't that much better. Right now, and this is what happened, Adam, I batch record first Thursday of every month. It's podcast recording day. I have 5 guests lined up, just rock star people, and we're recording and my internet is just trash. So we ended up turning our cameras off. And that breaks my heart because it shifts the conversation and the energy in conversation. Now, you and I, we have a history. We know each other. We're friends. This is our 12th episode. And so I can anticipate some of I can picture in my head. I can picture Adam's face. I can picture your mannerisms, and I can hear you through your voice. But if you're recording with a guest that you're not that familiar with, I feel like it comes through in the final product. And so being able to see somebody is really important. Broke my heart. And that's what we're doing right now is we have our cameras off, and it totally sucks.
It fixed it.
Especially, it did, but it totally fixed it.
Yeah, it fixed the internet thing. I feel like banter can be easier when you see the person. I feel like facial expressions are good to see. You can also kind of give some cues, like you can point, there's a lot of things you could do with adding the video. So I have a lot of coaching clients, and a lot of the times a new client will come to us and they will basically want to start a podcast, and they'll ask, hey, I don't want to record video anyway, so I'm not going to record video. Whatever I say to them is I basically slap them. I basically backhand them, what is your problem, jerk? Why don't you want video? And they're like, well, I want this to be an audio experience. And then generally I'll say a couple of things. I'll say you'll get a much better audio experience if you at least have the video. You don't have to use it. You don't have to make the video, edit the video, but just by being in front of somebody, seeing facial expressions, you know how you can see if somebody starts to breathe and kind of opens their mouth, they're about to say something. So that you can back off. You're like, oh, they're about to say something. It makes it so much easier. And there's other benefits too. I
want to add in there. I'm going to cut you off. You would have seen that I was ready to say something.
I would have known.
You would have known. Darn that internet. Okay. So, but even if you're recording solo episodes, which I record a lot of solo episodes for my mindset episodes, it's not narcissism. It's not that I like looking at myself, but I can even gauge my own energy level or kind of see, just watching myself helps me, I think, record a better episode.
One that just reminds me of hearing yourself helps you record a better episode. Today, I decided and opted, which is random for me. I don't think I've done this more than once, honestly. I'm not using headphones today. I'm at a different desk, and you said you couldn't hear any echo. So for me, honestly, I can't hear. I can hear myself because I'm talking. I'm in the room. But the way that it usually works is I'll hook up my headphones, and this is great for the listener to know. I'll hook up my headphones usually to my microphone or to my computer or to my Rodecaster Pro. And that will allow me to have my sound go into my mic and then back out to my own head while I'm talking, which a lot of people are confused by. They're like, you don't need to hear yourself. And for me, it usually helps. Now, I've also recorded nearly 1,000 episodes. I can't believe that it's getting so close, but I'm approaching 900 episodes between my 3 podcasts. Actually, I think I'm above 900 now between my 3 podcasts that I've had. And I'm pretty used to using a mic after 1,000 episodes, and I just didn't want them covering my ear today. So it was different. But in
all reality, were you in a boy band back in the day? So you're used to kind of how singers will kind of put their finger in their ear so they can hear themselves. You're like,
wait, can you see me doing that? I thought my camera was off.
I know, exactly. I'm like, oh, yep, caught you red-handed.
No, I'm not doing that.
Bye. No.
I looked up my internet speed, and it's saying 112 download, 112.6 download, 13.6 upload.
Wow.
The server is from Denver, and then it's saying that my internet connection is very fast. Your internet connection should be able to handle multiple devices, streaming HD videos, video conferencing, and gaming at the same time.
Gosh.
So I love it. But, it's interesting. I almost said I love it, but I should have said I love it. And at my house now where I live down the hill, I got the cheapest internet. There were 3 options. I got the cheapest one from Comcast, which is $80 a month. Comes with some other stuff, Xfinity, but I think it's 400 download and 20 upload. It's about twice as fast as this. And I'm kind of stoked. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice not having to drive up the hill on 285, which is kind of like one of the most dangerous roads. You've been on it, Julie.
Yeah.
It's one of the most dangerous roads in the winter in the whole state of Colorado. Just this little stretch that I have to make from my office where I am today recording and from my home.
Yeah, it'd be icy. Okay, here's another interesting twist because, I just thinking of the podcaster, like podcaster, you're recording your episodes and you have a guest and your guest happens to be similar to Julie Holly in the middle of nowhere. This gives you, a way to maybe navigate that, because sometimes we have high profile guests that we don't want to have to jump through the hoop of rescheduling because we have them right now. And so we want to make sure that we honor their time and we capture a great recording. And so, what are some other glitches that you've heard of people having? Like, I've definitely had this. I've had the thing where everybody's sound is messed up and we can't hear each other. And you're going through the whole, like, how do we fix this? And you're like lip syncing and miming to each other because you can't hear or whatever. So like, we face these technical difficulties as podcasters, and, maybe we could talk about some other ways that other tech issues we've overcome when we want to capture that recording with an amazing guest.
I'm lucky because I've done, 900 episodes total so far. And also because my team, we've handled more than 100 other people's podcasts on a weekly basis. And some of them we do 5 a week or 7 a week, 3 a week, 4 a week, 5 a week, or 7 episodes per week. So we've produced, tens of thousands of episodes. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's a lot. And because of all of that experience and working with different clients that are starting a podcast with different mics and different headphones, there's a few things that I've seen happen more than once. And I like to start by sharing that most people are swayed from other podcasters that they ought to use Riverside or Streamyard, or there's a bunch of others that
why do they use those?
Well, one of the reasons why they use them is because the video and the audio is not compressed like it is on Zoom. I use Zoom. Some people use Skype, and there's Riverside.fm, and then there's I don't know why I can't think of all of the different ones right now, but maybe one's called Zencastr, I think. Mm-hmm. The point is that we hear from our friends that Riverside is better than Zoom because Zoom compresses the audio, so it's a smaller file, and you can do less with it after it's compressed. And Zoom compresses the video file, which gives you a lower quality. And so you went and bought yourself a 2K or 4K camera instead of like a small 1080p like I use, or a 720 that some people use. And then you've got this nicer camera and you feel like, oh, I can't even use it because Zoom compresses it and makes it just as small as the 1080 would have been. And so I've got a 4K, but it was a waste of money. Because Zoom compresses it. And so basically there's a lot of forums where somebody who's used this, who might be an audio engineer or video engineer, has a lot of experience with different equipment. They're choosing one of these other companies, which I'm not really trying to poo-poo on them. I just prefer Zoom for so many reasons, but maybe they'll go to Riverside, for example, because of that. And then what happens on these other platforms is you get a lot more of the echo, and not all of them, but it's so freaking annoying, and you can't change it. And what I'm saying is, yeah, sure, maybe the platform doesn't compress a file, but for some reason, I've had dozens of clients that were told not to use Zoom. And so they went to one of the other platforms that were recommended. And on that platform, for some strange reason, there's just a ton of double echoing, and a thing that you said, Julie, where it almost looks like you're poorly lip syncing. Whereas you might hear it before or after the mouth is showing because of these platforms. So for me, I just like Zoom. It's never done that to me. It's worked pretty well, and I'm happy with it. And it integrates real easily with my calendar link as well. So there's pros and cons, yes, but it seems that nearly every one of my clients that has tried one of those other platforms to record on rather than Zoom gets these echoes that we don't really know how to problem solve or troubleshoot. Whereas if you're an audio engineer or video engineer, that one crazy person that's basically telling you to do it, if you are that person, you probably already know how to get in front of it, because technology is your thing. Zoom has made it easy for me to not have to use technology. Like, I just press record and it's done. So anyway, that's one thing that I would say is maybe don't think about going to one of these other platforms to record. You can consider it, but you might, if you have problems, especially if you have multiple hosts. The biggest problems happen with our clients that have two hosts and a guest. And those problems get amplified when the guest isn't wearing headphones. Now, I know I'm not wearing headphones, but I have a pretty expensive mic that is a dynamic mic that is not very sensitive. It's only going to pick up my voice around it. But these clients, they might have that, and then their guest is just recording on a regular like a laptop, with the laptop speakers and the laptop microphone, where what will end up happening is it'll add to this echo and amplify it and make it a lot worse. Other things that we've seen happen is...
Can I chime in on the whole Riverside thing?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. You know, a podcaster, please don't use Riverside. I know that we've already established that my internet is really horrible and rotten. However, I've had good days. I have good internet days, you know, when it's not stormy, and I've recorded on other people's podcasts and they have Riverside. And here's how this goes every single time. Oh, okay. Hey, you realize, like, well, one, I have to make sure I'm in the right browser, because platforms like Riverside are really cranky and they don't like Safari, and I'm a Mac user. And so I have to make sure I'm in Chrome, and I have to go through all these other things, you know, and then I'll get there. And every time I've recorded on Riverside, the guest has said, oh, yeah, you can see this is different. This is Riverside. And so when we're done recording, and it's all of this information about how to record and what I need to do in the steps. And it's very distracting from, like, oh my gosh, I thought we were going to show up and have a conversation, and now I'm having to learn about, now I know about Riverside. I'll be like, yes, I know. I'll leave the window open. I'll make sure that this is, you know, not touched until it's 100% uploaded on my end. And it just seems like such a fiasco, when really, is the production quality that much better? Is it really going to make a difference to the listener?
Maybe to the audio engineer, it will make a difference. I can't hear anything wrong with Zoom.
I want the listener to be happy. The audio engineer
I think the listener is happy enough, right, with this.
I do too.
You were saying something, and I was going to reply to it. Oh, it's because maybe our listener today is hearing you say that, why do you have to stay on? What do you mean by wait for it to upload? And so I'll just, do you want to take that away? What happens
Sure.
on Zoom versus like one of those other platforms that are supposedly better?
Right. On Zoom, it's just close out the meeting and it's uploaded to the cloud. Well, that's how I always do it, is to the cloud, because then the production crew easy access to all the same information. Everyone can access it through that Zoom account. So that's also super friendly. But on Riverside specifically, and I believe some of the other similar platforms, part of it is, well, they're uploading that raw footage from every single person. So they get you because like, well, we can adjust every single person's voice and audio quality. And so you have to leave it open on the guest. Every single person has to leave their browser tab open until your file is uploaded. So it's uploading every single individual's file off their computer and putting it together.
Yeah. So one of the problems, if you're listening, one of the problems with Zoom is if Julie has an internet issue right now and it kind of like cuts out on her end for a second.
Gosh, you're kind of being mean right now.
No, I'm not trying to be mean.
Teasing. I'm teasing.
But what ended up happening is it's being recorded in real time in the cloud. And so the cloud records whatever it hears. So if she were to have an issue right now because of the snow, you would just hear her cut out. You would just notice that she cut out because whatever the cloud is getting and not getting is being recorded like that in real time. Whereas with Riverside or some other platform, there's so many that claim to be better. One of the benefits that there might be there is that it records locally to your computer. And so it tries to get a whole file complete. And if your internet cuts out, you should be theoretically recording locally to your computer. And so you don't really notice that cutout, even if like the host or the guest heard you cut out, they would probably notice it, but it might not be picked up actually on the recording. And then on the drawback, because it's recorded locally and then uploaded, you can't just jump off and have it done. Usually you have to wait a couple of minutes, sometimes longer, depends on your internet speed and things like that.
It takes like 2 hours for me.
Okay, so for Julie, because she has upload speed of, I don't remember, it was like 12 or something, download speed of something like 12 or upload speed of 2.2, it's going to probably take, 5 times as long as it would for me. So if I have an issue, it's going to be amplified for her to do it that way. So just think about it, consider it. Julie's saying, definitely don't do it. And I'm saying, if you do it, don't sign a contract, just try it, see if you love it. If you love it and it isn't having the issues that we're talking about, feel free to stay on it. But Zoom is pretty helpful for me. I'm one of the only people that says, just go ahead and use Zoom. I like Zoom. Zoom works.
I love Zoom.
And most everybody knows what it's like.
One more thing on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Every time, even on a great internet day, which I do have, every time I've been on Riverside, there is still this weird, funky delay in the conversation. And I don't know why, because maybe record a Zoom episode with somebody, for my podcast or theirs, and then maybe that same day go and record a Riverside. And it's just this weird delay. And recently I recorded with ensemble, it's like a group of hosts and I was a guest and there was this delay. And so it created this really awkward, I felt like it created an awkward conversation because there was this delay. And so people would be cutting each other off inadvertently. And it's just weird. I mean, do it, try it out, see if it works for you. But I'll tell you what, everybody knows how to use Zoom these days. Post-pandemic, people are familiar with it. And if you have a guest that is perhaps a little nervous or, even if they're busy, maybe they just had to reschedule a podcast and this is like their 5th podcast ever that they've been on, you're going to lower their barrier to like be present by using something that's familiar.
I agree with that. Some of the other things that I wanted to mention that I've seen as issues is repeat one that I started to say. A lot of times a client doesn't want to wear headphones a significant amount of a percentage of my clients that say that they don't want to wear headphones. It's like 90%. That's what I mean by significant. They're women. Yeah, they're women who care a lot whatever they look like, or they spent a lot of time making their hair, or they don't want clunky. They always say, I don't want clunky headphones. Well, Julie, which I can't see her right now because we turned off the video, prior to this troubleshooting and turning off the video, I could see that she was just wearing like regular small earbuds or AirPods, whatever they're called. Earpods, I think, whatever they're called. The point is that is good enough and it's not going to be so bulky. But I do recommend headphones for most people, especially on a back and forth interview, for a couple of reasons. One is so you can hear yourself, which is always important, especially on your first 400 episodes. You probably ought to do that. And the other reason is because then your guests' sound, instead of your guests' sound coming out of your computer speakers and maybe possibly and probably being picked up for some reverb or whatever it's called, like an echo, a cycle, whatever you would call it. I don't know the term right now, but instead of coming out of your speaker and then back into your mic, then it comes out directly to your ears and never goes to the mic. So it can actually help you with a better recording on both ways if you use headphones. And so the reason that I bring this up is because a lot of the times I'll have a client that doesn't want to wear headphones, or they don't have headphones that day. And if we are editing their podcast, then it is really difficult for us to give a good recording, because when it's garbage in, it's usually going to be garbage out. And garbage in is going to be because they're messing up the recording by not using the right equipment. And so that's a mistake for this. I would say, what other mistakes have my clients had? They might, here's a good one that the listener, you ought to consider. In some cases, and let's just pretend you're on Zoom, for example. If your microphone that Zoom thinks that you're trying to pick up happens to be your laptop mic, your built-in computer mic, your monitor mic, or if you've got a webcam microphone. If Zoom thinks that you're doing that one, okay, stay with me on this. Zoom is pulling from that mic, but you do have headphones. You've got your headphones. A lot of people have made this mistake. You plug your headphone into the microphone itself, and you make your speaker the microphone so you can actually hear yourself. Well, the interesting thing is, currently, you're not hearing how the recording sounds, because you're hearing yourself through your microphone, and the computer, Zoom or whatever, isn't taking the mic. So I've had a lot of people, and I've done this, I don't know, 3 times probably, where I actually think that I'm using the right microphone because I can hear myself, but I didn't double check.
I've done this.
Yeah, you have.
Oh my gosh, heck yeah!
Tell us about your experience with it, if you don't mind.
Well, when I used to self-record back in the day, which you know what, I'm so grateful for Grow Your Show. But anyway, I just remember I'd go into edit and I'd realize why does this sound so terrible? And that's what it was. And so there are the times where I'm not quite sure how I catch it, but now I know to always double check my audio settings to make sure I'm connected up correctly, because it's a nightmare. The sound difference is so huge.
I had a speaking coach because I used to speak at a lot of conferences. And so I hired a speaking coach, and he always would tell this story in order to get speaking clients and for his lead magnet. He would always tell this story about how he was learning to be a pilot. And when he was learning to be a pilot, he talked about all the different steps, and he talked about this checklist that he had and they actually have to strap the checklist to the leg. But then he was mentioning how it was like a hot day, I think in July or something. And that day he took off and landed, I don't know, we'll just pretend it 6 times. And because he did it so much and he had used this checklist so much, today was the day he's like, this is sweaty. I'm actually going to take it off. So he takes off the checklist and sets it right there next to him on the chair, on the co-pilot chair, for example. And then he does what he's been doing, except he forgot to, I think it was put his wheels up or his wheels down, one of those things.
Oh,
and so
my
when
word.
he was coming for his, I think they call it like a touchdown or a quick touch or something. When he was coming in, he nearly destroyed the plane, and he got like completely face up, and he thought he was going to flip and die. And he's like, okay, this is my life. And he realized that it was just because he
Wow.
kind of took that checklist and said, hey, I've done this so many times, I don't need the checklist anymore. So then he gives this lead magnet out to get speakers. And he's like, I have a speaker checklist for you, a checklist of all the
Nice.
things that you need. You need to wear underwear, whatever. I don't know what's on this
Right.
checklist. But then he basically tells people, if you want this checklist so that you don't nosedive your airplane, take it. And it makes me think of a podcaster and you and myself, Julie, because I've done that a few times. I've had a lot of clients do that. You said that you've done it once or twice already.
Yeah.
And if you did like try to figure out what it is that you've got going on in your podcast today, then you might be able to like write down all the steps that you did. And if it was perfect, you keep those steps. If you miss something, you add that step to your own checklist. And I would say for our listener today, a couple things that they ought to check is the settings of 2 things. Whatever recording software or hardware that they're using. If you're using Zoom, check the audio settings for what you're using for your mic, what you're using for your speaker. And furthermore, sometimes have to check your computer's mic and speaker just to know what the computer's using. And I prefer to, when I'm recording, I move all of my computer's sound away from the speakers, not just my sound and the Zoom sound, but I take it so that my notifications on my computer will not play loudly through my speakers while I'm trying to get a good recording. So you just go to both places and you put all of your speaker directly toward your headphones, however you're going to do that. On the computer that I'm using now, it's an ATR 2100X, is my microphone. And this might sound confusing to you, but I choose today I'm not using my headphones. I already told you that. But usually when I plug in my headphone into the back of my mic, I need to make sure also that that's my Zoom speaker. Sounds weird because it's a microphone. You don't think that it would be a mic and a speaker, but because you got the headphones, you'll make your ATR 2100X or whatever mic you use, you'll make the microphone and the speaker the same. It'll both be your mic, even if that's confusing to you. That way you can hear yourself. And you also port your regular computer sound away from your other speakers for that call so that you don't have the notification pings, which most of us have for things like Facebook and Google and LinkedIn, and just regular notifications for these pop-ups for these what are they called? They're like the malware software, which is there to try to block things. And then they always want you to update it. And so I'll be there in a recording if I forget to checklist this stuff. I'll be there in a recording And I just keep getting these notifications and I'm like, crap, I didn't do that part of my checklist. And I just nosedived my airplane.
Yes.
So
it happens.
Do you have any other, out of curiosity, Julie, is there some type of issue, like a tech issue that you've gone through with anybody, whether it was on the guest side or the host side, that you could share with the listener?
There have just been those times, and I think most people are going to have this experience where you just didn't even understand why Zoom or whatever platform doesn't seem to be cooperating. You've gone through the checklist. Like, I did this. This has happened multiple times, and I'm talking to somebody. We've gone through the checklist. We've checked where everything is, and it still just isn't connecting the right way. And that's where I just always say, let's just start over. Let's just, everybody leave. Let's come back. And it always solves the problem. And so, I think that if I were a new podcaster, and this did happen in my early days of podcasting, and it still happens occasionally, maybe once a year. And, it's okay. Your guest isn't, I want to reassure everybody, your guest, or you podcaster, your guest is not going to get upset with you. And we want to honor their time. And so sometimes the fastest way to get things fixed is to just leave and come back. And you and I did that on this recording. We both left. I restarted my computer because you just never know what's going on. These tech things. I mean, I'm going to sound like an old person now at this point.
Me too.
But I'm like, I just start it over and it will solve all problems.
Julie, have you watched the movie called Skyscraper with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
No. Do I need to?
It's pretty heartwarming, heart-wrenching, compelling, interesting. You learn a lot. You're scared. I don't want to give it too much away, but basically it starts out with the husband a couple of times saying to the wife, because something's not working, why don't you just turn it off and back on? Your phone's not working. Why don't you just turn it off and back on? Your computer's not working. Why don't you just turn it off and back on? Then what's kind of interesting about this movie is the ultimate thing that the rest of this whole movie is about, the takeaways. One of them is this giant building that they cannot get it to work. They cannot get it to work. Let's just say it's on fire or something. I don't want to give it away, but they can't get the building to work. And it's not responsive. And so the husband, who's like a genius, can't figure out how to fix it. And the wife, because she was told a couple times in the beginning of the movie, the wife just fixes it. And then he's like, how did you do that? And she's like, I just turned it off and back on. And so that's what we did today when we got into this issue. Before we decided to go ahead and turn off the video, we tried. I reset my computer. I turned my computer all the way off and all the way back on. And I turned my internet, my modem or my router or whatever it's called. I'm actually not smart enough to know what a modem or a router is.
Oh, gosh.
Sometimes I just think they're the same dang thing. But I unplugged that. I unplugged the power from it for about 15 seconds. And I unplugged the cable that goes to the wall because this is using the phone jack. So I unplugged that phone jack for, 15, 20 seconds. They were both plugged in and we tried it. And usually that works. If you reset stuff, it usually works, just like in Skyscraper. But Julie, I know we're a little over time. I don't know if you're even able to go any longer. So is there anything else you think that you need to share with the listener?
Well, I just want to thank you, listener, for joining us on these 12 episodes. It's been really fun, and I really appreciate all the feedback that you have offered. And, I've gotten to know some of the listeners that I didn't even know because they've reached out on social platforms. And that's been really fun. We're podcasters. We got to stick together, and our podcast could be on totally different topics, but we're united because we're podcasters. And it's really, truly a special niche and a special group of people. And so I just want to thank the listener for joining us. And Adam, this has just been so much fun. I have grown so much, and the investment in coaching with you has just been extraordinary. And I'm so grateful.
I'm also grateful. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for the content. And the listener keeps telling me there's just something about how Julie can kind of take over, ask questions. She knows who's listening versus some of the other people that we might have on just don't have that. And so it's been awesome. Love watching your podcast grow and get the success that you were looking for it. And thank you. Thank you back. I've got a lot of gratitude for you and to the listener just for showing up. And I will say now, if you're listening and you want help with your podcast, feel free to reach out. Go and listen to episodes 1 through 12 with Julie. But if you're like, I definitely am ready for some help. I want somebody to like support my podcast. I want the easy button for podcasters. That's Grow Your Show at growyourshow.com. Schedule a call with me, a discovery call, and I want to help you. I want to give you the help that you need so that you do less and you get the success and you feel better because you're not having to edit it and all of those other benefits. So
and you can't afford to not do this. So don't make the excuse. Oh, yeah.
Do you still have your sponsor? Speaking
I do.
Of afford?
Yes.
Okay, because it's been like around 4 months since you got that sponsor locked in. And was it a 6-month contract or?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Okay, so you probably got a couple more months with them. And that's a huge thing, honestly, Julie. There's so many people that come to me and they're like, I want to monetize. And I'll say something like, how much do you want to make? And they'll be like, oh, like $300 a month if possible. And I think Julie honestly said something like that. I think she assumed that she was worth something like that. Do you remember the number, Julie?
It was really low. And then I'm like, no, you know what? I'm just going to do what I want to do. And it's been great. Like you're worth what you decide you're worth. And I'm like, I have a great show. I create really great content and it's niched down. So I don't have to have 300,000 listeners because I'm super niched down. And that really appeals to my sponsor because they live in the same pool that I do. And so it serves us both so, so well. I just really cannot overemphasize, you cannot afford to not hire a coach. I've spent so much money on growing myself over the last years. Like you'd go like, Julie, that's like so much money. And then I realized, no, it was an investment and it comes back tenfold. Not only does it come back to you tenfold, but you're able to serve and contribute to others around you in a more powerful way. And so you can't afford to not get the help that you need, in my opinion. And it's like, so don't shoot yourself in the foot and don't make excuses. Money is a tool. You've got 4 tools in the shed. You've got time, talent, energy, and money. And everybody's chasing after money. And you're throwing 3 out of your 4 resources away because you're so worried about this one resource called money. Like, think about your other resources, time, talent, and energy. So like, use your resources wisely. Don't stress out about money.
I hired another personal assistant. I mentioned Arisa, maybe even in this episode. I can't recall.
You did, yeah.
Episode. So I had a personal assistant who moved, and I hired a new one recently. And she really wants to save me money. She always is thinking about saving me money. And it actually gets frustrating. I'm not lying. I'm not exaggerating. It gets so freaking frustrating because she always wants to save me money. And what ended up happening is I moved, as we mentioned, I moved from Conifer down to Indian Hills. And so I moved 15 minutes closer to Denver. And she had this one company that was going to be $1,300 or $1,700. I don't remember now. I think it was $1,300. And she was like, oh no, I'm not going to have that moving company. They come and they pack everything, they load it in and they drive it to you and then they unpack.
Yes.
And so then she found one that was $40 an hour. And she's like, that, $1,300 sounds really high. $40 an hour sounds really low. But then they had like 3 people. So now it's $120 an hour.
Yeah.
And then because they're getting paid hourly, they're not as fast. And because they are a cheaper company, they don't have insurance. And the moral of the story is they broke my armoire.
Oh my gosh.
And they lost the pieces to one of my son's beds, and they dropped a whole bunch of stuff in the mud, and they never paid me any of that. So I ended up paying them $850, I think. But I also have to pay for a new armoire for like $350, and I have to pay for a new bed for like $200, and I had to wash a bunch of random stuff, throw out a couple of other things that they just misused. And at the end of the day, it was way harder, and it cost me more because she went with a cheaper one versus like the professional one that just had one solid price. And it's happened, I can't tell you how many times. I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent, but I asked for her help to get my son a birthday present, which was like a giant, some type of plushie, or I don't remember what it's called. A mellow.
Squishmallow. My daughter.
Yeah.
They're
Thank
the
you.
same age. Yeah.
So I wanted a squish. I didn't want a squishmallow. He wanted a squishmallow. And what she did is she's like, I pay her 20 something an hour, and she ordered a squishmallow from this place that is like 2 hours away. And they were going to charge like, I don't remember, $40 in shipping. It was going to be like a $50 thing with $40 in shipping. And so what she did instead was she drove all the way there when I needed her to do other stuff. And it's like an hour and a half drive there and an hour and a half back. And I pay her 20 something an hour. I really honestly ended up spending like $75 for shipping because she wanted to save me $40 or something. She's like, oh no, I'm not going to make Adam pay $40 in shipping. I'll just go and get this thing. And I'm like, where are you? I need your help. And she finally reaches back out. Oh, I'm sorry. I was driving. I saved you so much money. I'm like, you didn't save me any money. You cost me money. And there's all these tasks that I need you to do that we haven't done. So anyway, I love that you brought up there's time, talent, energy, and what was the other one?
Money? Talent, energy, and money.
Yeah. And money's the least important one to me, honestly.
You can make more of that. Your talents, you can refine. You can curate your talents. They're within you. In money, you can generate more money. But your time and your energy, those are sacred. So don't waste your time and your energy trying to DIY, shoestring budget everything.
100%. Julie, appreciate you jumping on. I'm going to let you go. And to the listener, schedule a call with me if you're ready for me to help you. And if you want to check out the next episode, it is a solo episode where I've already curated some content just for you. I want you to get that value. You need the value. It's going to be you and I. I'll see you on the next episode. By the way, one way to ensure that you don't miss out on great content that we're producing on a regular basis is to make sure you're subscribed to the show. You need to be subscribed or following the Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to it in order not to miss all of that. And before I let you go, I need to mention, because a lot of people are asking, do you help? Can you help me with this? And the answer is yes. My company actually does it. It's called Grow Your Show. And you can find that at growyourshow.com. Our clients, they call us the easy button for podcaster because they simply have to record their episode. And they know that every single thing else is done for them. We sweat the hard stuff so you can be the star of your show. And if you would like help to make sure that we're editing and publishing and promoting and doing your social media, it's all in one place. And I think it's pretty affordable. You'll have to take a look for yourself. Just go to growyourshow.com and check us out. And by the way, I'll see you on the next episode.